So if you guys are wondering, you can go to the tier list and just click on gods now. And then the builds are here, and then you can click on the build you want. I did not know what he did this. What a fucking beast. We had broken, strong, average, situational, poop tier. So there's our base of the tier list. Achilles right now, I think we all can agree Achilles is very strong. You can top pick it, you can early pick it, you can mid pick it. He will always have success in the solo lane. I feel like that's just always gonna be a story, nothing's gonna change. Agni has come up in the tier list. Agni's usually like an average pick. He's doing a lot better now with the double flat pen build where people are building Divine and Spear of Deso. The true damage just on these gods that can kind of pump it out consistently, pretty fucking scary. AMC still doing okay, still an average pick, easy to chase down, but also pumps out a lot of damage. They did buff his ults not too long ago, and you know he's not a bad character. Oh, I'm trolling. Woody, my bad. He isn't. Wait, where's Atlas here, boys? There he is. I'm trolling. I didn't see him. All right, so yeah, fucking AMC average. Apwash. Getting played a little bit more by Monday Ricks. Still not a great god. You're still low mobility. You can kind of pub stomp if you're able to free cast. If everyone's protecting you, that's not going to be common. It's going to be based on your comp. Very heavily based on your comp and playing around the god. So AMC is going to fall down there. Amaterasu right now, I'm throwing in an average. A couple people have been saying Ama's back and playing really well, but I haven't really seen it played at all in high ranked. Nobody's touching it. Nobody's doing anything. I know, Woody, that's my bad. Nobody's doing anything with Ama right now. If comp starts up and she's getting played all the time, we might see her move up. I don't see her moving down at all anytime soon. On her, I still think Honor's a really strong pick with the current builds and with the stim builds kind of coming back into play with all of the bows being picked up. We're going to put On her down into average because when matching up against those gods with no stim, doesn't exactly compete the same. And this is kind of going back to before where Honor was played, still a really good pick. Doesn't really have a ton of terrible matchups, but it's not going to be as consistent as these other gods and nowhere near as strong as these other gods that are kind of being played every single game. Anubis. Honestly, Anubis is poop, bro. Like, you have to build sustain to play the god because you have 0 mobility, and then as soon as you do, you're going to get onked and you're just going to die. The onks are going to come out early. They're going to be heavily upgraded. You're going to get farmed. What's his fucking name? Ao Kwang. Doing okay in the jungle. The rod buff, tier 4, makes him a little bit better late game, but his early and mid game is still his biggest faults, and he hasn't really moved and isn't changing away from that. Aphrodite, I'm throwing down the situational. They upped the anti-heal you have while not in combat, making Aphrodite a little bit worse. She's going to get out pressured by a lot of gods. As I just mentioned, Ankh is being upgraded to tier 3 very early, and it's very strong. It's not going to be fun to play gods like Aphro into that. Apollo, super strong. He's back to being played. The bow builds, the attack speed builds, plus there's the fact that he's able to split push into this split push meta where he can essentially just keep diving onto, ulting onto the Phoenixes and killing them. With not much downside to it. Not saying that's the only reason Apollo's being played. That's just if you're losing, that's a playstyle you can pick up real quick. But the builds are making him very strong. The crit build is good on him, going into Diamond Arrow, Blood Forge, Atalanta's crit, or going the normal auto attack build with the bows, the Destol, Ikaval into the rest of the bows. It's really just depends on what build you want to play. Arachne right now, I'm going to put Arachne into strong. I think with the early starts, the pressure you can get out of the jungle because nobody knows exactly where you are. You can either go to solo and do a different start. You can do the speed to red start and look for early ganks. That pressure isn't really going to be matched by many junglers, especially since Arachne hits 2 before everyone else with that current farm. So Arachne is doing very well in the jungle. Better in your lower ranks. I'd say like sub-plat, like plat and below. Arachne's gonna pub stomp pretty hard. Once you get up into the diamond higher games, still really strong. Just a little bit more skill needed to play the god, obviously. Ares, very, very good pick right now. I wouldn't say he's overpowered or super strong, but he is a good aggressive support if you're looking to play one. Artemis, I'm gonna throw in a situational. Maybe the bow build brings her back, but I don't think so because of her immobility. She's just too risky to play. Dies a lot. Artio, average pick. They nerfed her back down a little bit. She's not really getting played at all in my solo in any rank games. I never see her played in solo. Have seen her played in support a little bit. She's definitely not bad, but she's not OP anywhere. Athena. Athena's pretty fucking strong right now. You don't have any downside playing it as a support. The way actives work, it kind of allows you to do a lot more in that role. You're just spam taunting. Your job is not that difficult. You can be in every single team fight with the ultimate. You can also play it in solo lane. If you're a weaker solo lane player, you can just play Athena, clear the wave, ult to any team fights. You don't even need to know how to rotate. You literally just have to press one button. Atlas, strong support. I think a lot of people don't know how to play Atlas and don't know his power point, like where he's peaking with power and, you know, where he's got the best engages and where he's kind of doing the most. Yet, I think as we see him played more and more and more, and if in the comp we start seeing him played, that's where people will learn more. Very, very good setup, range setup, very annoying, can be super hyper focused on just poking and allowing your team to range poke to dwindle people down. And once people are doing that, you will see him succeeding a lot. Awilix, good pick. Hyper aggression early, a little bit weaker in the late game compared to a lot of the other assassins. Good pick, nothing wrong with it. Can early pick it, late pick it. It's just not going to stomp or control and carry all the games. Baba Yaga, same situation. She's average. She doesn't really do that much. She's just kind of there. She can hit very hard if you're walking in. You get a lead. Without a lead, she's kind of not that scary. Bacchus, another average supports. He jumps on you. He flops. He's a good aggressive support in terms of starting fights, but he's not going to be peeling very much, and he's going to have very low presence outside of that initial initiation. Bakasura, I hope Baka comes back. I legit hope with the patch change, they're making it so his 2 reduces the cooldowns on his 1 and his 3. Like when you eat a creep. That's going to be interesting. I don't think it's going to make him good. I don't think it'd be great. Maybe we'll see him played more in other roles, or maybe he'll become an average god. For now, very situational. If people have any mobility and any lockdown, they're going to fuck you up. The god just doesn't have the CC needed to play jungle right now. Like really, really needs more CC in his kit, or he needs some way, he needs longer CC immunity or something. Baron, average pick. There's just nowhere to play him that's consistently good. Solo isn't going to do great for him. He's going to get outplayed and out-rotated and out-team fought by a lot of these warriors and even some guardians. Support just doesn't do his job. And then mid, probably his best role, but it's still really weak compared to a lot of these other mid gods. So going to throw him into that average tier compared to the top mids. Bastet. All right. I think Bastet is very good. I didn't put Bastet into my top 5 junglers list because I don't think she's doing what those other gods are doing. Like Arachne was in my top 5s and a bunch of aggressive gods and a bunch of other gods, right? Those gods have so much pressure created around just their natural kits and not having to be an exceptional player or on the god. With Bastet, you really need to know the god front to back. You need to be looking for your team to be engaging, and usually the lead is what makes Bastet look even better than she is. The biggest thing with her now is she's got that built-in sustain that you get to play around. She is banned a lot. I've seen her not get picked a good amount, oddly enough. You've seen her taken into the solo lane because of that built-in sustain, because she's kind of safe. She can be aggressive, quick clear, and then kind of jump right back out. I do think Bastet is very strong. I just don't think you have to ban or you'll lose against Bastet. I don't think she's at that point. I do think she's very strong, though. Bellona, average. Even with the changes, you're not seeing Bellona succeed all that much in the solo lane. I do think Bellona is way better in the jungle than in solo. Sounds weird, but it works really well into a lot of the auto attack gods. As mages are coming back though, and the flat pay mages are being played over and over again, Bellona's gonna drift down and farther into that average tier, like lower end of average. If you're seeing a lot of auto attack gods, you're still seeing soul, you're seeing double ADCs, anything like that picked up, Bellona should be played. Kraken, I think, is situational. I don't think he excels in any lane right now outside of, you know, just existing. So you really need to play him into perfect situations. You need a bunch of walls or something, or just a team comp is somehow built around playing Kraken. I wouldn't want him as support. I wouldn't want him as jungle, and I definitely wouldn't want him as solo unless your matchup kind of just stomped for some reason. I mean, I'm not seeing any Guardians really played in the solo lane consistently. It's still Warriors. If Guardians come back into the SPL level, then we might see it shift, but we got to wait for the competitive game to start being played. Camazot's very strong jungler right now. He lacks CC, but he does so much damage, and with that sustain, you're consistently able to just spam heal and stay in the fights and stay farming on the map, which makes him very strong. Cerberus, average pick. He's actually fallen off. I haven't seen him picked all too much this season compared to last season. Nothing really crazy changed on him. He's still got the decent aggression. It's just, it's shifted into other gods because he's a more consistent, long-term, in-your-face support. And honestly, the way a lot of these fights are going and with the way mages are being played, they're pumping out so much damage. I don't see him sitting there just free casting as much as he was last season. Cern has gone up. Cern is doing really good in every game he plays. I don't know that Cern's going to be the best hunter anytime soon. Definitely performing better than he was, which is good to see because he's been shit for a long time. Chalk, throwing him in situational. I've seen a lot of people throwing around these weird like damage, almost hybrid, but not really hybrid builds. Chalk still falls off late. They have not found a solution to Chalk at like 19 minutes doing nothing. That's probably never, ever, ever going to change. Junga, another situational god, basically based around the fact that she's low range. Short range, hard to get in and do consistent damage. Her ult is good, but if that ult's not up or you can't get a good angle or you miss, you fuck up, you're kind of worthless as soon as that ult is thrown out. Charybdis, very strong ADC, very consistent ADC. Biggest thing I think people need to realize is what the 2 does. I talked about this in the top 5 video. Learn how to use your 2 and what your 2 does and realize how safe you are between your 3 and your ult. Stop using your ult for pure damage. It fucks you up and you lose a lot of damage when you do it. Chernabog, average. He's got the global rotation, but his laning phase is no better than most of the other average hunters. Chiron, very similar situation. If you somehow need a dispel, like, I don't know, Geb's band and they have Fafnir and you're really worried about it, that's where you can pick up the Chiron. Kronos hasn't moved, average pick. With the changes to Rod and everything, doesn't bring him up any higher. Still has the same issues, still dies very quick, usually before getting the ult off. Kleena, I'm not going to say Kleena's broken either. Strong tier is probably going to be a lot bigger this patch. There's a lot of very, very good gods, but they all can be played around. They can be played into. You can win against them. Kleena's one of those. It's one of those gods that's banned a lot, all the time. Does get through occasionally, similar to Bastet. Doesn't guarantee a win, but does have a lot. It's kind of that sustain built-in that you have, especially with the upgraded Jotuns and the stone, what's it called? Stone Eater, the Soul Eater. You just get so much out of the god because of the current builds and the current items that are in Smite that they're not going to be weaker unless they tune their damage down, which they haven't done anytime soon. Cthulhu, average. People are thinking Guardians are coming back. They have not come back yet. If they do, it won't surprise me, but Warriors are still stomping. Cthulhu would then move up because he's usually one of those Guardians that just excels, get a good laning phase. He's very safe, hard to kill because of his ultimate. He just runs away. Cullen, average pick, not excelling like the other Warriors are, but not a bad pick still. It's just Bluestone and all the starters haven't made him that much better. Cupid, situational because he's countered by most of the gods in the game in terms of him being locked down, in terms of his ult not hitting. I don't think he's that bad. You know, I don't think he's trash, but he's not going to be winning games like the other ones. That guy's pouty. Yeah, I think he's upset because he's a bronze player. It's okay. Dodgy. I think Dodgy's a very strong jungler right now. You want to late to mid pick it. You're not going to definitely early pick it, but it is like based on this consistent solid pick in almost every god being played, especially the mages. Dodgy's doing well. Top mages right now that you're seeing in ranked, which is one is going to be thrown off from the top 5. Morgan Le Fay has worked her way up. Thoth is being played a lot, right? Dodgy counters both of those. Thoth has no CC immunity in his kit, so it's really easy to burn his beads off one ult and then ult him again and insta kill him. Morgan Le Fay on the other side, you can insta-kill Morgan Le Fay because she can't peel you. Her 2 can't hit you while you're using your 2, so she has no peel and she just kind of falls over. So Dodgy doing very well in terms of matchups, burning beads, killing these mages and other gods that are being played. She's just a really solid god. She requires a little bit more farm and a little bit of understanding about auto attack cancels. But once you have that locked in, you'll do really well with her. Danza, I think somebody was trying to hype up Danza going into this patch. I don't know if you're here right now on stream. Danza's okay, but after his nerfs, he's never been what he was. He's not a top hunter, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Discordia situational because you're playing around buffing your teammates. She's one of the weaker mages overall as playing that true mage class. Erlang Shen, very strong if you're going mannequins and you're looking for early pressure and you are pushing that early pressure as a jungler. It's being played in the solo lane a little bit. That's not that consistent because he is easily gankable, but he does create a lot of pressure in the solo lane as well, a lot of kill potential if your lane is going to be focused and farmed by your jungler. If you're going to be ganked a lot, your teammates are going to gank your lane a lot. ESET overrated. I think ESET is blown massively out of proportion as a support. I don't think she's a good support whatsoever. I think it was a fluke that she did okay in that last tournament, and there's a reason she wasn't played after that one team lost in the tournament. I don't think you should be playing ESET. I think you should be sticking to aggressive supports that are warriors like Horus, or just playing your traditional guardians that are very strong right now. Fafnir, same old Fafnir shit. Really good support, but not overly strong, not overly good in any comps right now. Fenrir, I'm going to throw him into strong here because of everyone hyping him up. I don't think he's good in jungle. I think he's okay. I don't think he's good in solo at all. But as a support, especially in the early stages of playing ranked, he kind of just W keys and farms people, and they don't know how to deal with it. I played it a decent amount. It's just very, very easy to play against bad players, and that's what makes him strong. Once you get up into higher tiers and people start counter picking you and playing around your pick, it is nowhere near the same, but you won't experience that at all, really. You're not going to be experiencing that until you get to higher ranks. I think Freya is insanely good right now as an ADC. As soon as you get Hasten Ring online, you can kill your ADC. And then as soon as you get Hecate online, you will outtrade pretty much everybody as long as you haven't fallen behind.
I hope all is well with the fam.
Thank you, 3 Tigers. Ganesh, average. He's not doing anything. Nothing's changed. Nothing great about him. Geb, I think, is very strong. At a high level, I think he falls down a little bit. But as a base level support who wants to engage and then peel for his team, your job is very easy to do. And it's consistent. Even with the nerf to his shield, he is still very strong. Gilgamesh. I kind of want to put Gilgamesh up into broken, but he's not really broken. He'd probably be at like the top end of strong because as a jungler, you build him hybrid, you don't die, you do insane damage. You can play him in solo and build him full hybrid, do the same thing because you do insane damage, and he's very safe, and he has a good team fight ult, and he's highly mobile. And then even as support, you can play him for the same reason. You can build him full tank, you still do really good damage, you're very very good at setting up, and you, with that ult, you just kind of separate the team fight so well that nobody can match it and play around it. Guan Yu, situational. Straight up, situational. It's weird because right now, when I play the game, I really don't feel like too much is fully broken. Like one or two gods really that I feel like are just unmatched right now when you're a good player. And it hasn't been like that for a long time. But Gilg would be, I could argue, like you could argue broken, and I would probably agree with you and throw him up there. No problem. What up, surprises? Thank you for the prime sub. Hachiman, average pick, just fairly safe. That's all he brings to the table. Hades, I think, is poop. He just doesn't do anything. He doesn't have any lanes he's going to play well into. He's not going to be a support. He's not going to be a mid, and he might be played in solo. And when he's played in solo, he's kind of exposed by a lot of these warriors still. It's cool that you can all be super tanky, but most people just walk away from your all and don't give a shit. Hebo, way too risky to put up and be playing consistently. But if you do get away with playing him and there's no counter picks and you can pick him, I would put him in average. But with gods like Fenrir being in the meta, Dodgy being in the meta, they're going to hard counter you. You're just going to insta-die to them. You're not going to be able to deal with it. Heimdall, I think Heimdall is very strong, very safe. If you're using the 3, if you're consistently moving the 3 around and putting it where you need it so you can instantly use it and get away. If you do that, you'll never get ganked and you'll be one of the best gods in every single match. You can be the best person in every match just by having that survivability. Hell, situational, you need to be able to comp around it because you're going to get anti-heal spammed and it's going to be hard to play. Hera, average. She's safe but doesn't bring a lot to the team fight outside of her ultimate. Hercules, very average. Unless you're hitting every single 2, you don't really create enough pressure that another god couldn't do without having any skill shots. Horus, I think, is very good as a pressure support. Doesn't really play well into any other roles. You could argue putting him in a strong, and I wouldn't argue with you. I wouldn't put him any lower than average, though. And I think average is more consistent because his early game is good, but then his mid to late game isn't as nuts as a lot of other supports. Hou-Yi, I think, is very, very strong right now. Has a lot of good matchups. If anyone's building crit, you can counter the crit with your passive. You have good trades. You have good counter ganks. You have good team fight. You have everything about him is a very, very solid, strong pick and really just ability for his overall kit. Hunbats, I think Hunbats is strong right now. Usually average would be where I throw him. But with the fact that you can upgrade your blink pretty early and you can play as an alt bot if you're having a bad game, or you can actually play to be doing full damage, same shit, different day, as all the other assassins, he does a good job. He's got a team fight ult and still does a ton of damage. He's actually one of my favorite gods that I don't play that much right now. Had a lot of fun the few games I have played on him. Izanami, I think Izanami is stronger at lower ranks. I think overall, in the grand scheme of things, probably put Izanami between strong and average, but in lower end, very easy to play. You have full clear. You almost always have pressure. The biggest thing that I think is shit on Izanami is your 3. The damage your ult puts out is really high, so as long as you're using that to initiate fights, and especially in 1v1s, you're going to have really, really strong 1v1s, and you should probably pick up Izanami if you're a new player. Janice. Janice is the flip side of Izanami. I think Janice is very, very strong right now, but most people large portion, 99% of mids who play Janus are dog shit at Janus. You don't ult to rotate. You don't consistently run through the jungle and look for poke and save your one so you're never in a bad position. You really just don't do anything with the god. You just exist. Those players shouldn't play Janus. Now, that's where I'm saying like the low end, like sub diamond and even up in a diamond right now. You don't even touch Janus. It's pointless because you're bad. No offense. The good Janus players are pumping because the double flat pen builds are really doing well with gods like Janus. You have consistent spammable damage. You're very safe. You get a little bit of early CDR online and high power, which does a lot. Yes, you can go into your casuals and practice your Janus, but you have to realize you should be constantly clearing and moving, poking and moving, never standing still, never fucking just sitting in the mid lane. That should never, ever happen. Xingwei's getting a buff in the next patch, so maybe in the next tier list we'll move her up. But for right now, she's just average because she doesn't die. Jorman Gunder, I'm going to put him in average tier. He can play solo lane with the arrow, the gilded arrow start and catch people off guard and get an early kill. If that happens, you snowball pretty well. If that doesn't happen, you're susceptible to all the ganks. If I'm a jungler and I see a Jorman Gunder, especially with the damage build you usually go, I'm going to kill you. I'm just going to farm your lane over and over again. Kali, I think Kali's very strong right now in the jungle role. She's doing a little bit worse at high end than she was last season, which is weird to see, but I think at all brackets overall, she's super strong. She's hard to deal with. The lower end you are playing her, the easier she's she's getting away with whatever build you want to go. Full auto attack build for the late game, mid game carry, or you can go the early burst build into an auto attack build so you have a stronger early game and go for those kills. It just depends on your play style. Khepri, average. He doesn't do anything in this setup and meta as like he was last time. You know, as soon as junglers started building damage again, you saw Khepri move up. But then we saw in the SPL, all the junglers are building hybrid tanky. You don't need a Khepri in that situation. You need more, you know, frontline or aggression out of your support. So Khepri's kind of fallen and is just kind of sitting in that average tier. King Arthur, I think, is very strong right now. I think both the Bluestone build and the Sigil build are nuts. The better player you are might dictate which build you go. If you're very confident in how you're going to play and your safety and you know the matchups, Bluestone might be better. If you're a little bit less confident, you might go the Sigil, so you're tankier and nobody can kill you. Cullen, average, just low mobility, and his damage is not easy to consistently hit. Have to have a good team comp to make it consistent, but if you're a good Cullen player, it's not a bad pick by any means. Kumba's getting a buff next patch, so maybe we'll move him up. Right now, he's situational. He doesn't really bring anything to the table that other supports don't do. He's just kind of there. That's all he does. He just sits there and does the bare minimum. Kuzimbo, average. After they nerfed his 3, he's nowhere near as good. Wouldn't play him in solo right now. Play him as a support. It's hard to be super aggressive, though. You're going to get out-cleared by a lot of real supports, and that's not going to be fun. Loki, strong pick. You got the split push meta for Loki working as well, so if the game's going to shit, you can just start PvEing, which is sad, but you can. Outside of that, with his scaling and his high damage and the builds that are available right now, he's doing well. He's got good matchups. He can shred through all the mages that are being picked. Not really a bad pick in any situation as long as you're engaging properly. Medusa. I think Medusa might be one of the best hunters right now, if not the best hunter. You know, it's kind of arguments, but she's easy to play. She lacks true mobility, so her safety isn't always there. But if you're one of those people who W keys and fights a lot and you're confident in your ADC gameplay, then Medusa's a good pick because she out trades with most hunters. She can fully aggress and dive right into, you know, anybody who's aggressing on you. You can turn on junglers with it. You have a decent team fight ult. If you're landing it, if they're bad, you're going to be popping. If you're just regular hitting it, she's going to be doing okay. Then she has the anti-heal in the 2 now, which makes her a lot better at trading and winning those 1v1s in the dual lane. Mercury, I think Mercury is teetering between strong and average. I thought he'd be doing better, especially since the anti-crit isn't being picked up as much. But with warriors being as tanky as they are, as early as they are, it's really difficult to trade. And because your early game isn't as aggressive as some of these other junglers, you really just don't create early farm for yourself unless the other team makes mistakes. So if you can exploit the other team's mistakes, you'll probably be pretty consistent, but you won't just be stomping every game. Whereas playing something aggressive or Long Shen, Nemesis, Arachne, those gods will definitely be way more consistent and shut down the early game for Mercury and make the game a lot harder for him. Merlin. Double flat pen build works really well for Merlin. He's still not safe. He still dies to all these diving solos and junglers. If in your games, the people are being idiots and they're playing shit gods in the solo that don't dive, they're playing mages or just really slow garbage guardians, that's when Merlin can be played. If the people are playing junglers that don't dive, they're not playing assassins, they're not playing warriors, that's when Merlin's going to excel. If they are playing those, it's going to be hard for you to play Merlin. Morgan Le Fay, strong. She's back. simply because of the item changes. She's popping right now. It's kind of crazy to see her go from literally not touched at all for, what, 6 months to she's played almost every single game now. And it's kind of even banned. It's ridiculous. Mulan. Mulan might have had the hardest fall off, and he's getting nerfed again, right? Or she's getting nerfed again, I think. I'm going to put Mulan on average, which is nuts. I still think Mulan's a pretty good jungler, but once you hit late game, it's kind of similar to Chalk. You just fall off, which is what Mulan's problem used to be. In the solo lane, she's not getting touched. She's literally not playing, like, at all. Items and builds have really tweaked what makes her do what she needs to do. And then with the nerfs coming through, it's way weaker. Can I get rid of post? I'd like to know your opinion about. Maybe some higher-risk devs can hear. After this tier list. Naja, situational. I really don't know where you're playing Naja consistently. Just way too full committed into every team fight when you don't want to be a full committed jungler, and building hybrid isn't as good on him. People are hyping up Neith. I think Neith is pretty average. She can ult in a team fights, which is cool. I think ability build's not bad on Neith, but she doesn't win any 1v1s. She's not great in lane in terms of that pressure, and a lot of the game right now is truly being played in the side lanes into fighting 2v2ing, 3v3ing in the lanes, and then playing around the objectives and the buffs that are respawning. Nemesis, a really strong pick, plays well with all the starters. If you want early pressure, you go the mannequins and you pretty much have it right away. Good at early ganks, good at early rotations, great at killing these tanky targets. So these warriors that are, running in 1v4 and think they're safe, you insta hit them with an ult and they're just dead. They fall over. They aren't expecting it. That's where Nem really, really excels, especially in this meta. Nike average, she's fallen off a little bit. She's still really safe and an okay warrior to play. Gets counterpicked by a lot of other matchups though. Nox, I think Nox is poop. Straight up, doesn't do anything. Have to hit 2 abilities to do the bare minimum. Nua, average. You're an alt bot still. Don't bring anything to the team fight. Odin with the nerfs. Back to average. Not a top solo laner anymore by any means. Olaron, I'm going to throw an average as well. I kind of thought we'd see a lot more Olaron right now, but with the flat pen builds coming out from mages, they're matching up and doing better than the auto attack sustain mages are doing. So gods like Olaron have shifted down from strong a little bit because of that. Osiris, I'm going to throw an average just because late game he's still really weak, even with the full defense build. Pele, average, because you're still low mobility and anti-heal. Early anti-heal is going to fully shut down the whole play style of let me build Soul Eater, let me upgrade my Jotuns and just be unkillable. You will be killable when you have all that anti-heal on you. Persephone is still weak. Everyone wants old Persephone back. Nobody performs well in Persephone. Poseidon doing decent with the flat pen build. Still low mobility though. Really hard to play a mage with no mobility in current meta. Ra is going to fall into that same situation. Very difficult to play these mages with low mobility. You get dove on and you cannot get away. Raijin, a little bit safer than your gods like Poseidon and Ra, but because of the time it takes to get out your damage, you are easily pressured. Other mids will tear you up. The gods like Morgan can cancel out your clear. Gods like Thoth, which we're going to talk about in a minute, are going to just poke you down and kill you over and over again with you not being able to trade. Very scary matchups. I think Rama, with the shift in builds, Crusher's getting nerfed. They're taking 10% attack speed off. With the Ichabod coming back and the auto attack bow builds coming back, the steroid gods are going to excel. Rama's going to be up here in the strong tier because of it. Rat, average. All he does is ult in, falls off late game. Ravana, crazy strong. Good matchups into every single warrior, mage, hunter, can dive the top mages that are picked. You don't have any downside to the god. You can build full damage. You can build hybrid. You can build super tanky. You will always be able to do your job. Nothing wrong or bad about ever picking Ravana. Scylla, I think Scylla's pretty strong right now, especially with the flat pen builds. She's a little bit safer. Her damage is easy to get off. Not really a downside. The biggest thing is the top mages will out pressure, out poke, and have more consistent damage just because Scylla's positioning and kind of the speed that she does her damage is a little bit slower than those gods. And the range that she can do that damage in is a little bit lower than the other gods. Serket as a support, I think is pretty good. Serket as a jungler, a little bit more situational. Set, after all his nerfs, and with anti-heal being picked up, I don't think he'll be consistently carrying games. Average god. Scotty hasn't seen much play or much change with the items that have come in. We aren't seeing ability hunters being played because auto attack hunters are popping again. What's the difference between flat pen and percent pen? Flat pen, 10, 20, 30 pen. That means if someone has 100 physical defense and you have 30 flat pen, you take away 30 defense from them, right? You are penetrating 30 of their defense. So imagine you just take away 30. So they're sitting at 70. Percent pen, if you have 20% pen, you take away a percentage. You take away 20% of whatever they have. So if he has 100 defense and you have 20% pen, you take away 20 pen, right? If he has 200 defense, you take away 20% pen, you take away 40 of his defense. That's simple. The algorithms are weird, and it gets way more intense when you start looking at flat pen and then percent pen and then aura percent pen and then like executioner pen. It's all becomes a weird algorithm. Just think of it base level and you'll be fine. Sobek performing pretty well as a support, but not doing anything crazy. Soul is falling down a little bit once again because the flat pen mages are excelling. I think Wukong is fairly safe, and that's about the most he does as a soul laner, but you can build full damage and kind of run at those mages in the backline and kill them, which is a good play style to have, and he might be moved up as we see it played in competitive. I think Susano's actually a pretty good pick right now, but not just popping off or excelling in any way, shape, or form over the other junglers, because his early game isn't as strong as some of these other junglers, especially when you have the warriors like Gilgamesh and stuff. That Gilgamesh just has really great matchups and can turn a lot of those fights pretty easily. Sylvanas, decent support, have to know how to engage consistently as a Sylvanas and need to be hitting those pulls, or you're not going to be able to create the pressure or the engages that you need to do. Terra, just doing Terra things. I mean, you pretty much kind of root and ult. Your early game is dog shit in lane, which is one of the worst things about her. And then late game team fights, you don't have as much presence as some of the other Guardians. Thanatos, good, aggressive jungler. Little risky, and that's the main reason he's not in strong. I do think he's very good, and if you're a consistent player on Thanatos, I don't think he's a bad pick by any means. Morgan, good pressure mid, but realistically, if you're playing into these other mages, they're gonna have way more presence than you. The biggest thing is you get to add another warrior to your comp if you are playing the Morgan, so you can kind of go for that one shot and then swap over to these warriors who are really excelling out of the jungle and the soul lane. Thor has not changed at all. They gotta buff him again. He kind of just exists. He's not bad, but he's not good. He's very, very average. Thoth, I am gonna put Thoth into the broken stage. And that's because no matter how bad you are of a mid player, you should be able to play this god. Yes, you can be counterplayed by warriors and junglers diving you, but your pressure that you're creating out and the damage you're putting out way earlier in the game than everyone else puts you into that broken tier. If you're a good Thoth player and you start to learn how to be aggressive with your dashes and force these 1v1s and poke everyone out, you won't be beaten by anybody. Just straight up, you won't be beaten by anybody. It's the flat pen builds that are really excelling on Thoth, plus having 20% cooldown, which is what you get really early with that build. Your one is always up. As long as you're hitting your ones, the cooldown is non-existent on the ones and you're able to spam them. No other god can do that right now at all. Thoth is by far the top played mage and the hardest mage to deal with, even if you are playing a dive comp, just because of the damage Thoth does. Tiamat, strong pick still. Hasn't really been nerfed on the ground. Just people suck at playing Tiamat. They don't understand both stances and how to play it. Tsukiyomi, I think Tsukiyomi is in between strong and average. I'm going to put him into the average tier because I do think he kind of falls off and doesn't do as much in the mid to late game as he does in the early game. Tyr as a solo laner, I think he's gotten a lot better, but haven't seen him excelling way above everyone else. So he's just sitting in that average tier. He full clears a blue stun at level 2 and you can catch people off guard with that. Ul, similar situation to almost like Scotty, where ability hunters kind of where everyone was scared of them. Oh, malicious Deathbringer. Nobody's afraid of them. They aren't taking over the meta. They aren't excelling over everyone else. The auto attack hunters are doing way better. But Mana, I've seen him played a little bit more, but he's still bad because anti-heal instantly counters him. Vulcan, situational because he's not safe. Shibalake got a buff, but no stim in his kit, so you're not seeing him do anything better than he was last season or last year or whatever. Xingtian, still the safest support you can play in the game. Yamoja got some nerfs. I think Yamoja is fine to play, but if you're a bad Yamoja player, you don't understand being a ranged support and still playing up as a ranged support, you should never play Yamoja. I think Ymir is performing better than he was. And I actually think he's kind of a nuts, really aggressive support. So if you're a support player and you want to kind of dictate the pace of the game for the early game, play Ymir. And there isn't really much downside to it. Outside of your positioning is very, very important. I know a lot of you guys suck at positioning, so that's why we don't put Ymir up into the strong tier. Zeus is doing okay, but he's being killed and out-pressured by these other mages right away. Zhang Kui doing a little bit better, but still being out-pressured, not succeeding in any lane, still not doing as good as the warriors, and not being able to clear and be as aggressive as these other mages. There's my tier list. Thoth in the broken tier, dude. You could move some stuff around. Like if you really wanted to get into it, I would be fine with moving Morgan Le Fay up here. I would be fine with moving Kleena for most of your else games probably up here, but that's something I would argue a little bit more. Gilgamesh, I could see you moving up just because of his presence in a lot of different roles. I think Ravana is fucking nuts, and I could argue being broken tier. Yeah, Thoth has passive pen. Thoth has infinite cooldown with just 20% CDR on his one. And because of that, he's doing beyond true damage on the gods he shouldn't be doing true damage on. But yeah, this would be, I'd be okay with this a little bit more. I like putting more than just Thoth up here. I think this works. I do think I'd rather play Thoth than Morgan. That's why this is like kind of here-ish. Maybe this looks a little bit better to me. Show poop tier. I'm going to leave it like this. He said it's a dog shit. Shiva will be broken. Shiva is broken 100%. Shiva will be the best god in the game on release if he's released as is. Poop tier counters broken tier? What? In what world is Thoth getting countered by Hades, Anubis, or Nox? After I made the top 5 mids was when everyone started playing Morgan Le Fay. So that's why I would kind of shift things around, because Morgan Le Fay and Thoth do really well into the Morgan. They don't get out pressured because they can equally clear and poke at the same time. I do think the Morgan is still good, but based on every tier, like if you're bronze or silver, I don't want you touching the Morgan. If you're gold, I don't want you touching the Morgan. Plat, if you're really comfortable with her, maybe then, but it's like higher end is where she starts to play way, way, way better. Why is Apollo strong? Because of the builds. Steroid builds are coming back. People are building fucking like these crit builds where they're going Gilded Arrow into Bloodforge into crit, which is really good on Apollo because it was passive. And then the stim builds where you're going the Destal Ichabal and full attack speed bows. Apollo's passive once again buffs that even more. And he just excels really well into ranked and casuals because he can split push. He can rotate in the mid lane really early in the mid fights, which is where most fights are happening. And he just has a lot of game presence if you're a good player. I think it would make Anubis better if you could change / add something. Mobility. He needs mobility. I think Naja's ult needs to change a little bit, and Naja's 2 needs to change. I think the fact that Naja's ult can be countered by you just having like not shit ping and pressing beads automatically, like the Naja can't control that, right? If I hit my ult on Naja and you're not a shitter or not lagging, my ult doesn't hit. That's what I don't like, because it puts you out of position. The idea for that, the reason I don't like it is because once you ult, you're there, right? Like if the beads, I don't know, if you could guarantee be pushed back off of that, like if your ult failed, you got knocked back a little bit, or I don't know, you could reposition, that'd be different. But problem is you're just kind of there and you just die. Thoth is broken because of the flat pen build. Being built gives you so much power, and flat pen with Thoth's passive, you do true damage to everybody early game. So you're doing more damage than every other mage, and you have no cooldown once you finish Spear of Deso because you're one. If you hit it, every time you hit it, it goes on a shorter cooldown. So you can pretty much just keep spamming your one. You outtrade everybody. God is nuts. Better to play around teammates or play for yourself? You play for yourself, but you play around your teammates. You have to learn how to, you know, early to mid game do what you need to do, but then as your team starts going for objectives or grouping on sides of the map, you need to be over there. You can't just leave them out to dry, because that's where you can excel. Your team starts a fight, you can enter into that fight late and just kind of clean up, play the carry. They could shift some of the damage on Naja's ult to be more up front. Yeah, that would help a little bit for sure. It would just be weird though. That's why I'm saying you'd have to like completely change the ult. Baka jungle pick is pretty much never good. You'd have to get some crazy snowball or just hyper farm and out farm their enemy jungler. You'd have to get up like 3 to levels off just farming and invading, which is very difficult. No, I don't play duel. Apex tier list? I don't know. I'm gonna update all the builds here since we know what they're gonna be going into this patch, so I'm gonna be working on them over the next couple days and then make sure everyone else has all their builds. Atlas not broken? No. People are really struggling on Atlas because they don't understand the kit. Baka buff, well, Baka buff hasn't come through yet. I think it's going to make him better, but I don't think he's going to be God tier. I mean, I'd be gladly be wrong because it'd be cool for him to be played again. I do think the fact that auto attack items are pretty strong, like, kind of benefits the idea of him coming back. I just don't think he will. If I go crit on Hun Bats, I'm just going Deathbringer. 1 crit item. All right, so this tier list is on Smite Source. If you guys want to check it, whatever. I didn't even know he did this. I had no idea. So if you guys are wondering, you can go to the tier list and just click on gods now. And then the builds are here, and then you can click on the build you want. I did not know what he did this. What a fucking beast. We were talking about it, and he said he was going to do it. I just didn't know what happened because I forget everything he tells me. So yeah, if you guys go on here, you can just click on the gods. Go to the builds. Builds haven't been updated yet. So if you see relics are updated, the build is updated. Outside of that, the build most builds only need to be tweaked slightly. If I've skipped over them, I'm gonna be working over that for the next few days. Work on mobile, it should. I'll test it right now. Smite source. Smitesource.com. Tier list. Boom. Gilgamesh. Yep. Works on mobile.